Well, one of the issues that we're talking about today that's been a big one for everybody is cyber insurance. Everyone hears about data breaches and someone coming in taking your client lists or your customers' data, or even shutting down your business in one way or another, or pieces of it. And so there are a number of insurance products out there that cover that, but anymore your regular business insurance probably doesn't cover that. And this could be, for some places, $100 million problem, and something that you may not have a lot of influence over. It happens to you, and sometimes even when you feel like you're doing everything right. And so having insurance in this space is getting more and more important, and yet the cyber insurance market is very new and very immature. And so you really need to be careful what kind of policy you're looking at, how much you're paying for it, and you really need some understanding and expertise on that.
Well, there is no federal cybersecurity policy, and that's been talked a lot. And I don't know whether it's we all want Congress to jump in or whether we want an executive order, but we need some refined thinking about standardization. And the absence of having a defined standard means that one will emerge, and it may or may not be the standard that thoughtful individuals and the people who need to work with it really want. So that is something we need to just think about.
We've been talking about cloud computing here in the Cyberspace Law Committee for several years now. As the internet has become more powerful and faster, people and companies are keeping their data with third-party service providers outside of their own protected network. And so what's usually the crown jewel of a company, which is its data and its intellectual property, is often being held by companies outside of that company's immediate control. Naturally, that raises security concerns. It raises concerns of what happens to that data if the service provider goes into bankruptcy. Is the data stored offshore? Can anyone else get it? There are a lot of legal concerns that are relatively new in the industry.
We still see a lot of confusion in the marketplace, much to the surprise of some of the lawyers in this group, on how contracts are formed online and how contract terms can be enforceable online. We also see a lot of issues around the conflicts between trademarks and problems with trademarks in cyberspace. Those are some of the things that I work on with my clients. And also I often do work that's more general business work or M&A work, but there are internet-related, online-related issues that come up in M&A. And as an example of that, there's a project that's going on here at this meeting, which I'm sure some other folks will talk about, that's going to be helping create a written product around dealing with cybersecurity issues in M&A due diligence. So many of my clients, when we do M&A now, we have to consider things like cybersecurity issues, online privacy issues, compliance with privacy requirements that 10 years ago we didn't really look at so much, and now they're everyday issues.
The payment card area has grown, very substantially in our country and abroad over time. It's become a very stable platform. The thing we're worried about now is how do we deal with problems of fraud, how do we deal with data security. We've really worked out many of the other aspects of that system, but we've got many new systems that are coming online, new approaches to making payments, some of which are detached from that environment. So I think that's where the new innovation's coming, where it's going to require some new legal thinking, and it's some fun to be a part of that.
So how are changes in communications technologies impacting companies and people? Well, contract law is based, or contract law is very old, and it's based on this idea that people meet face to face and they execute a contract on paper and signed in ink. Now that hasn't been the case for a very long time, and we've had standard form contracts for decades and decades, but when standard form contracts migrate onto the internet, all of a sudden they're not confined by space. If you got a 100-page contract, you'd know it was a 100-page contract. If it was, to buy a car or for internet service, you'd think, gee, there's something wrong. But when there's the equivalent of 100 pages of text communicated to you over the internet, you don't even look at it. If you've ever actually looked at an online agreement, it probably says, we the vendor can modify at any time we want without giving you notice, and you're bound by using this service. And so at this meeting, we are embarking on a project to study those sorts of agreements, the case law, which is still pretty scant on modifications, and to try to give some guidance to companies on how to do it right.
One of the big issues that's been growing in recent years is cybersecurity. We've been reading about all kinds of attacks where companies and foreign governments are coming into U.S. companies either to cause disruption or to steal data. Companies are going to be answerable to their shareholders for the manner in which they protect their corporate assets. And governments, of course, are going to be very concerned with protecting critical infrastructures in our country and internationally. So I think cybersecurity is going to see a lot more regulatory action, and shareholders are going to be demanding that companies are going to be held much more accountable to how they handle their data and their security.